to be here, as I said. Any day out of Augusta is a good day, but always good to talk to local businesses and local people about the events of the day. And you already know that Canada is our closest connection and our most important trading partner. And last year alone, we traded about $6 billion worth of goods and materials between Canada and Maine. And Commissioner Duguay, I hope you've all met him. If you haven't, you'll be doing a lot with him. He's Commissioner of DECD, Community Economic Development. You gotta get a simpler name, Economic Development. But he knows and we know that the uncertainty about the president's tariffs and the economy, the roller coaster economy of this country, is making Maine businesses with close ties to Canada very uncertain, and some of them questioning their futures, especially small businesses who don't have the reserves, broad capability to endure a major setback in supplies or customers. And when you have to pay higher tariffs for basic critical materials or pay export fees on finished products, people are going to be forced to pass these costs along to consumers at a time when you can least afford it. Well, excuse me, we know that international trade supports thousands of jobs here in Maine too, and that's at the heart of our economy. And my administration wants to do everything we can to urge the President and the Congress to support trade policies that strengthen domestic manufacturing here in Maine and expand international markets for our products, and be the most welcoming state we can be still to those visitors who contribute to our economy as Canadian visitors do. I'm concerned that the President's rhetoric is making our Canadian neighbors feel very unwelcome in the United States and uncertain about visiting here. Last year alone, 800,000 people from Canada came here, and they contributed about $500 million, $500 million to our economy. This year alone, from February to April, 166,000 fewer Canadians came to Maine by land. That's 26% drop, 26% less than the same period last year. And we're doing everything we can as an administration to market our state as a destination for for Canadian travelers. And as I mentioned outside, this month I've joined Governor Maura Healey of Massachusetts, Governor Phil Scott of Vermont, Governor Ned Lamont of Connecticut, Governor Dan McKee of Rhode Island, and Governor Kathy Hochul of New York, and that's it, six of us, in organizing a summit in Boston to be held on June 16th. And we've invited all the Eastern premiers, the Atlantic province premiers from New Brunswick, Quebec, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, etc., Newfoundland, Labrador, to see what we can do to fortify our relationship and our very intertwined economic existence. And we're going to be meeting in Boston June 16th. I'm looking forward to that, but I want your ideas about how we can continue to encourage these age-old partnerships. We have a 611-mile border with Canada, with Quebec and New Brunswick, and we need them and they need us. It couldn't be more important to ensure and strengthen those partnerships with our Canadian friends. And that's why we've manufactured these signs to go up at 13 border crossings. You saw them outside. My French isn't that great, but bienvenue nos voisins canadiens, etc., nos amis canadiens, welcome Canadian friends and neighbors. We want to make sure, and we've got posters for you from those same signs, welcoming Canadian visitors en français. And I've directed the Department of Transportation to put up these metal signs, big ones, welcoming Canadian visitors at all 13 border crossings, Maine and Canada. They've just been placed already this morning at Old Orchard Beach and at the Kennebunk Turnpike rest stops. They say, bienvenue Canadien, just welcome Canadians. It's a simple message, but I hope it's a powerful one, a meaningful one, just like having the flag outside here sends a message to people who want to feel welcomed. And I said, the Department of Community and Economic Development is making smaller signs. We have some for you today. So we want to market Maine as a premier destination for visitors on both sides of the border this summer. and for other states as well. We can't always make up the loss of Canadian visitors by advertising to other states. We're doing that as well too, marketing tourism. But I'm also planning to do my own road trip to New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island maybe, as far as I can get, a short period of time. And talking with the premiers, the new premier of New Brunswick, the new premier of Prince Edward Island. And we've all retained a good relationship. They were the first to call last fall after the elections about concerns over tariffs. And they want to be involved and engaged in that discussion. So I hope others will to follow my lead and take road trips to Canada as well as welcoming Canadians to do road trips through Maine and spend money here and visit, maintain those deep relationships. So,
Yep. So
Ken.
Yeah.
with Ken and Trish.
Yes. Can you? I know you've got a lot to say, and I'm so proud to be here in the oldest continuing family business in the country. Sorry I can't spend the night tonight, but I'd love to hear what you're hearing on the ground, what you're hearing from Canadians and others about the impacts of tariffs and the discussion of Canada on your business.
We have Canadian guests that have been coming since my wife was a little girl, and they've been coming for decades. And so it was, I guess now, their great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and now them bringing their children. And what we do each December is I send out letters to them offering them to come back. They send us a deposit in January. By the middle of February, I had to send back almost $7,000 in deposits.
Oh.
And these are people I know, they're friends, and I called each one and wanted to ask why, and I said, is it the tariffs? And they said, no, it's just basic honor. And they said,
Honor?
Their honor.
Oh my gosh.
So they said, especially the French Canadians are very, very proud, and it's their honor that they said they couldn't come back.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, they say they want to come back in the future, but they're not going to come now. And they also said, which surprised me, is they didn't feel safe coming to America.
Really?
Where
Oh
I
my.
told them, in Maine, I mean, we're here for tourism. Everybody's going to welcome you. I'd feel less safe going to Canada with an American flag on my chest than they should coming here.
Don't go to a hockey game.
Yeah, exactly. So the tariffs don't affect them. The tariffs affect us.
Yeah.
And the past 2 weeks, I've gotten either emails or letters from all our suppliers, and with 15, 20% increases. I mean, that's coffee from South America. It's paper goods from Canada, Mexico. It's linens from Pakistan, India. It's soaps, shampoos, amenities from China. Everything's going up. A case of toilet paper was $69. It's now $119. And we set our rates for the year in December. We take reservations and we guarantee our guests a rate. I can't just then take that 20% and add a tariff tax onto their rate. So we have to try and find a way to make that up.
That's a lot. How many do you employ here, Ken?
We have 15 people.
Right.
What do you tell the people when they say they don't feel safe coming here or their honor is at stake? Is there any way to reassure them?
I do. I mean, first I try and play on our relationship because they're family.
Yes.
They come, they know my staff. My staff have been here 15, 20 years. Well, even I have one since Trish was a little girl. And so they come, they know everybody's birthdays, and I tell them that you're going to be welcome. You're going to be welcome in the shops. You're going to be welcome in the restaurants. Walking down the street, you're not going to have a car honking the horn at you. But they just said with the rhetoric, they just can't see coming. It's their honor. I mean, if Massachusetts started bad-mouthing Maine and said they didn't want us to come there, you'd feel the same way.
Feel offended.
Yeah. And I don't know a way to get past that, other than luckily, in the past 4 weeks or so, that rhetoric has kind of gone down some.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that will make them realize that it's not the whole,
Yeah.
it's not the whole country, it's not the citizens of the country. And then maybe change, come back in the fall.
Thank you. I think it's important to reassure them that their safety and the safety of all people in Maine is of paramount importance.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves in being the safest state in the country.
Yeah.
We vie with Vermont having the lowest crime rate, lowest violent crime rate in particular. Stiff competition. But they want to keep it that way, and I think that's one reason people do come here.
Yeah.
During the pandemic and post-pandemic, people came here. We reversed that out-migration trend that had been in existence since I was a kid and everybody wanted to leave Maine. People have been coming here to live, to work, and to raise a family. But the hospitality industry is still vital to our economy, and I hope they do feel safe and welcomed here.
Yeah.
Anything would you like to add?
No.
No? You wrote the book. I now have to read the whole book. This is,
I would say something about since the pandemic.
yes,
Before the pandemic, we had very few guests from New Hampshire and Vermont.
yes.
But when you open it up to Mainers, then Vermont, New Hampshire, once they came here, they're coming back.
Yeah.
And they're telling their friends about the Kennebunks. And we're getting a large number from Vermont and New Hampshire.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
You tell them we have an ocean?
Yes.
Lucky us. But I think people felt that Maine is the most rural state in the country. People can be safe. They can find peace in the outdoors and
Absolutely.
things to do, hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, all those things. That's still an asset we have, a big asset.
Yeah.
I want them to know that.
Kirsten, you've had some challenges both with your Canadian
Yes.
artists and your buyers.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do first. I'm sorry. But
No. I own an art gallery in town. We show almost 40 artists that come from around the world. So I show several Canadian artists from Mexico, Spain, the Netherlands, England. So my artists originate from China, all across America. And I opened the gallery actually 5 years ago this spring, and it's been just really great. But
it's KW Contemporary
Yes.
Art, to be clear.
KW Contemporary Art. We moved here in 2019, actually for a lot of
You
reasons.
did?
We did right before the pandemic,
Oh.
and a lot of the reasons you said. We loved everything about here. We were living out in Wyoming, and
Wow.
upped and came out to
It's
Maine.
Maine without an ocean.
That was actually that was the conversation that happened, and we loved it here. And so when the opportunity to open my business arrived, I jumped at it, and we've been going strong. But the winter was really difficult when it came to how up and down things were, and March was I think that's when Laura and I were talking about this. I was in New York for an art fair, and there's a number of international clientele at the art fair, and I was jokingly apologizing about what was going on, but I got asked, "Are you guys okay?" People were concerned. I mean, other art buyers from England, the Canadians, everyone was like, "Art, how are you guys doing?" And which I thought was very empathetic and lovely of them. But I was saying to Laura, I had a number of clients who, because of these tariffs that created this volatility in the stock market, that people put a pause on projects, on spending, projects that I maybe spent 6 months working on and getting to a certain point, all just paused. And that
significant financial.
Significant, yes. Not an insignificant amounts at all. And then I've had some of my Canadian artists who they won't ship to me anymore because of the cost of shipping has gone up.
Cost of shipping?
The cost of shipping. One of my artists had a shipment that he wanted to send to me, and it was 3 pieces, exactly the same size of work that he had sent to me at the beginning of January, like same exact box dimensions. It went from $150 to send these pieces to me to $450.
$450?
For 3 20 by 20 pieces.
Oh my gosh.
And on top of that, he said he had sent some pieces to another gallery that they got turned around at the border and came back to him. And one of the pieces was damaged.
Oh my God.
So in addition to the cost of shipping
risk.
being high, there's this seems to be a lack of clarity as to what the policies are at the border
Yeah.
when it's coming to sending things through. And I think it's depending really on who you're getting, and which border, which shipping point. But that's been a really big concern is some things go through fine. Some
Wow.
things don't. And when you're not sure if your good is going to get through, and if that painting doesn't get to me so I can sell it, they
Yeah.
don't get their money.
Yeah.
It goes back to them, then they're stuck having shipped it, paid for the shipping, paid for the packing. You know, we've all now had to go back to square one, and we're talking about how can we
Excuse me.
have the work available to clients but not have it here physically. So
Oh,
we're
boy.
we're all getting very creative, but it shouldn't have to be.
No.
We shouldn't have to be getting this creative. And I've been really, really disheartened by just like Ken was saying, the rhetoric is really tough. But you know, one of the things that was interesting when I was in New York was people saying to me, "Oh, you're from Maine? Oh, that's your governor, right?"
Yes.
Oh. Really? How many?
and I said, yes, we love her. And
Aw,
it was after
thanks.
that dinner you had attended. And
I didn't get dinner, but that's okay.
well, it looked,
Coffee.
you know, you were sitting
Yeah.
at a table and there
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
But no, it made an impression on a lot of people. And there was a number of people who said, "Oh, you're out of Maine. Oh, Maine's one of the good ones."
Oh.
You know, so what you say and do has an international impact. I mean, these were people, like I said, from England who I was talking to
Oh,
over
wow.
coffee, and they had seen that on the news. And it made an impact on their brains. They talked to me about Maine, about coming here, you know, telling people about the
Wow.
state, about our town. But if the stock market keeps going up and down, I'm in a luxury goods business.
Yeah.
We need certain amounts of stability. If there's going to be a tariff, there's going to be a tariff, fine. But it can't be in 1 week, gone the next, coming back, going
Yeah.
here and there. We all need clarity, stability, and a set of rules that are going to be followed. And if that's not possible, I don't really think long term any economy can withstand that.
Did you say all that again? That sounds England? Just kidding. No, but you know what? I mean, I appreciate the comments, but it's remarkable to me that that's a remarkable thing. I've been to the White House many times, talked with several presidents and cabinet members, and we always had a good rapport. You had an honest conversation with whoever the president was. And it's too bad we can't have that dialogue. But anyway, thank you. So, and you mentioned, I'm hearing from the seafood industry, lobstermen, and others that you talk about luxury items. Dining out is in danger. People aren't spending money on things they were spending money on before, and because of that instability that you mentioned. But let me just go around the table. I don't want to hog the.
So Michelle can talk about that.
Yes,
Like
okay.
dining out.
Okay, Michelle, you're up.
I own a French bakery in town, so boulangerie,
Aha, boulangerie.
and I can tell you, check average has been affected, for sure. Just even with our year-round guests, the people who, everyone in this room.
You're welcome.
Everyone in this room comes and supports us. Thank you.
Yes, you do.
They support me either by eating there or they supply me with their children to
Plenty
work
of
there. So
cookies.
thank you.
That's true.
It's true. It's true. So it's been the economic chaos, is what I'm calling it. The economic chaos. It's very tied into our senior crowd in the off season, right? So January, February, March. I'm open year round. It's causing our sweet seniors who I love taking care of in the off season. They're really like I honestly, please don't let this leave this room, have a little secret button that says local good guy, because they're used to only paying, and they have it to the penny to get their little almond croissant once a week, and we see them once a week, and it brings them to the community, it gets them out. They don't have the extra whatever cents if I have to raise prices, so we just.
Are they worried about the security of Social Security?
Absolutely. They are absolutely worried about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, the whole thing, absolutely. So that being tied in, I rely on the backs of all the independent innkeepers in town that send us people. I mean, I have a tie-in with the Kennebunk Inn where if guests stay there, they get a discount over at the bakery. That's how they get their breakfast. Well, quite frankly, they don't have as much occupancy right now, and that's really, that can hurt us. So very contingent on hotels, very contingent also, I'm a big believer in our own growth, like to keep my staff engaged and keep the community engaged, we have to grow, right? So again, I've been looking to expand, not in the way, it's not another location, everyone calm down, I don't mean that, that was my previous life, but for production. And I was a month away from signing an LOI on a location for production, and I backed off because of the economic chaos, the cost of construction, the cost of goods. Chocolate is up 42%.
What? No.
Chocolate
There's
is
a
up
crime.
42%.
Give us
It
the
is
numbers.
blasphemy.
Chocolate is
so I
up
was
42.
paying, I'm sorry, excuse me, that was, well, everyone knows that was eggs. Sorry, eggs is
Oh, okay.
42%.
Oh, that,
To be clear, it's because I have literally a secret egg number. I'm not joking.
Oh my
We got with
God.
our purveyors.
Chickens
all of us
in the
came
backyard.
Together. I contacted other purveyors in town, and we buy group pricing, and we drove it down together
Wow.
to keep it. It's still up 42% with the drive down
That's eggs.
as eggs.
What about
So-
chocolate?
Oh, chocolate. You ready? 25%.
It's up 25%.
25% for the Calais and the sticks. So what I make my chocolate croissants with, what I make my brownies with. So we are now considering, especially going into the summer, if I can't figure out, it's all about contribution margin, right? It's all about your menu mix. All these things I'm saying are in my top 10. We just did a top 10 countdown for our 10-year anniversary. I'm telling you, number one is quiche. So it's egg driven for sure. So, and you max out at a certain price. And I don't want to have like a set of prices for our year-round guests and summer guests. I don't do that. I don't play like that. It's not right. And I don't like raising prices. I only do it if I have to. When we bought the bakery in 2019, also right before the pandemic.
A big reason we moved was because of your bakery, not gonna lie. It played a role.
Yeah. I know. Whenever a house sells around us, they always say, "And you're near the bakery." It's like, woohoo. But when we bought it, I worked in fine dining for 25 years. I worked for a fine dining steakhouse prior to doing this. So for 20 years, I knew in fine dining, your margins, if you're lucky, bottom line is 2 to 3%.
Wow.
That's it. You scrape it. People think it's not, but there's a lot involved. So when we bought the bakery, it was closer to 8 to 9%, and we're fast approaching 3%. Because, and it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things, to be fair. But one of them is definitely product cost, for sure. Coffee, woo! And we try to go for all small, local, with everything that we do in the bakery, because we want to support small and local. So we have a small little roastery up the street that we use. They're phenomenal, but they've gone up 10%, and they think they're going to be going up again later in the year, depending on where they're getting the beans from.
Oh boy.
So, when you have margins that rate sort of thin, you can only do so much. And then again, when you combine that with the expansion, with God knows what construction costs are going to be. And so we actually, I was very lucky to come into some inheritance. So I think we're going to be moving forward with it. But that doesn't usually happen.
Fortunate.
That's insanely fortunate.
Yeah.
So with that said, we're going to cautiously move forward. But the other piece is, and you mentioned it before, the packaging. 90% of our packaging comes from China. And it's green. We prefer using green packaging because we are a green institute. You can get like a green certification. America doesn't make a lot of green packaging, and it has not even particularly started.
Wow.
So in particular, I'm having a lot of trouble finding the right packaging. And when you're putting the same product in a package that's not the same size, it looks chintzy, quite frankly, and it gives the bad message that why does it look so much smaller? It's not, the packaging got big. You can't find the right one. But also, just even paper-wise, American, I'm gonna say it, American products on that front, they're not as good. They just, half the case, the bags are broken. And you're gonna get a credit on that on the 10th of never.
We have to
I mean,
put
it's
them
never
together
gonna
with
happen.
tan bark and Saco, right?
Yeah.
An alternative wood-based, fiber-based
See?
food. It's an alternative to styrofoam, basically.
Yes, oh,
And
we
we
don't
make
have any
it-
styrofoam.
And we make it here in Maine.
That's huge.
Yeah. We'll have to get her together.
So it's, you know, it's been very difficult. We're French bakery, French Canadians. I haven't seen one this year. Not at all. Not at all. And I'm sure it's stemming off of all of you. They're just not visiting as well either. And on a personal note, I'm married to a European, and he broke down and got an American passport this year because he's been here 15 years. And we finally said, just to be safe, so our family wouldn't get broken up, he went and got a passport. He gave up his citizenship to stay here
Oh,
with his
wow.
family. So there you go.
Hear ya.
That speaks volumes.
I hear you. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay.
I'm Courtney, and I'm a fifth generation Kennebunker. I serve our select board here in my second term, Kennebunk High School graduate, and I work as an independent agent connecting large U.S. and European brands with Asian suppliers for footwear, as well as their factories. So I kind of work as the middleman. I call on the brands in the U.S. I have a company here in Maine called the Maine Resource. That's my LLC. And essentially I work going out, representing a tannery and a textile factory, representing their products to these brands. And what I've heard at the table so far is a lot of wants over needs. Just saying, like, I love to travel, I love luxury goods. Half of my business is luxury goods that are the wants, and half are the Walmarts and the Targets and people who need to have shoes. And shoes is one of the top 5 items that's being impacted by the tariffs
Wow.
in America. And so just a quick example of some of the things that we're seeing, it's sort of a 3-prong approach. We have brands that right now have product sitting in Asia or, in even the
Shipments.
Dominican, Mexico, or Canada in warehouses that is either being destroyed or rerouted to Europe because the impact to bring it into the U.S. would be so significant that either you're going to see layoffs at these brands like LL Bean, who you mentioned, Eastland Shoe, also in Freeport, who you might know. Down in New Hampshire, you have Timberland, which is a large customer of ours, just had a string of layoffs. Clark's down in Boston, Converse, Puma, these are all our customers. And they're all experiencing the same thing. So either you're going to see a pass-through cost to the consumer, which is going to be roughly 86%, or they're going to eat that cost and you're going to see layoffs in those brands, which is going to create unemployment. Or the last part's going to be that just you're going to have a break in the supply chain, right? The suppliers like myself are taking a $20 out-of-factory item, split by 30 suppliers, and being asked by these brands to split the tariff. Because they're too scared to go to the administration and say, this isn't working. Your average things you're seeing on the shelf for like a typical Timberland boot that everyone can picture is $25 out of the factory, and it's $120 on the shelf.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's
Never mind.
$20.25, no problem. You see it for $120 on the shelf. That's going to be a $220 boot. Who's going to afford that?
Yeah.
And a lot
Just
of
the one boot.
just
You want a
one.
pair?
Right.
You want laces with that?
So those are the realities, and you see like Walmart and Target coming out saying that this is going to happen.
Yep.
I don't disagree with having fair trade and having things made
Yep.
domestically. I think we would all love to see things made locally. Who wouldn't love to be able to go down the street and avoid Amazon, right? But the reality is there's certain industries that that's just not going to happen, and footwear is one of them for certain. LL Bean, you mentioned it, and it's just not a reality for brands like that. They can only do so much out of Brunswick. New Balance can only do so much out of Norway, out of Massachusetts. They're at their capacity, and when you talk about cost of living and wages and just the impact on the environment that these industries bring, we have to work together and bring our strengths, to support each other globally. And Maine does a very good job, I think, in our avenues that we're good at. But we really need our global partners to work together, like what you're mentioning. And that's the big impact that I'm seeing. And like everyone else mentioned, just the feeling of coming here. I mean, I walk around Vietnam at 1 a.m. by myself, and
I feel safer there alone at 1 a.m. than I do in 90% of American cities.
Wow.
So, you know, as a woman married to a woman in the state of Maine, I've never questioned my life here, and it's starting to get a little weird, right? And I thought we were going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, things are just feeling like they're kind of going backwards. And so, yeah, it's, you know, it's not just professionally, but even serving the board. I mean, we have contracts and budgets we're passing that they're going to be impacted by these tariffs. Grants, that's a whole other conversation. So, you know,
Road work and
yeah, exactly, and the cost of
repairs.
all those things, 100%. My professional life is one thing, but when you think about just the livelihood of Maine is really what I see every day, and traveling and seeing other places, like this isn't normal. It's not good, and something has to be done.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you for your insights.
Hi. Governor Mills, I'm Kevin Terry, and I'm the general manager of Align Precision up in
Yes.
London. We manufacture precision components out of aluminum and hardened steels, primarily for the aerospace, defense, undersea, and electronic components, or major manufacturers of electronic components. You might, think that we would already see the impacts of some of those tariffs and so on metals and aluminum in particular and steels. We aren't seeing that quite yet, not at our level. So you think about the length of the supply chain. It feels like we're watching the tsunami in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know the water. We're standing on the beach and we know the water's gone out, and we're just waiting for that to reach us. Right? We know our suppliers, tier 1 suppliers, right now are paying more than what they have. And we're pushing back and saying, hey, we're just going to pay it because we know we're depleting your current inventory. But at some point, that's going to reach us.
Were you able to stockpile in advance any of the materials you need, or?
We have not.
Yeah.
No, not as our particular business unit has not been able to really stockpile. We use a lot of maybe 20 to 40% of customer supplied material,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't stockpile that at all. And the material that we do have, we're trying to, maybe a month, I would say, maybe about a month is what we've been able to stockpile. Not much more than that.
Yeah.
Our expectation is that we're going to see maybe like a 5 to 25% increase in material cost in the next 6 months.
Are you still the chair of the Maine International Trade Center?
I am. You
Board?
caught me on that. Yes,
Yes.
I am. So I know a little bit more about the
Right.
other aspects of this, and if I put that hat on for a minute,
Sure.
you're right. There's an incredible impact of the tariffs across the board. I think the thing I'm most worried about that I learned is that in that role is the fee that'll be charged for Chinese-built ships, which has a huge impact on our ability. Or IMSCIP, for example, comes into Portland. Majority of their ships would be impacted. It would mean IMSCIP doesn't come to Portland anymore.
I'm sorry, fee on international, could you
Sorry,
explain that?
Chinese manufactured vessels. So if the ship was manufactured, not just the material, not the goods, not the material that's on the ship, wherever it comes from doesn't matter. If the ship was manufactured in China, the actual vessel,
No matter who owns it now.
right, no
runs
matter
it.
who owns it now, no matter what
Wow.
country owns it now, majority of ships are manufactured, right, in China, globally. Global ships on somewhere around 60% or more of the large container ships have been manufactured in China. So every time they come into a port, they will pay a fee.
Is that in
Significant
effect
fee.
now, or is it proposed or in effect?
I believe that's in the proposed piece. I don't think it's
Wow.
fully in effect, right? You may know about this.
I believe it's in addition to what the fee would normally be. I believe
Right.
it's $1 million addition.
That's correct. That's
God.
not currently in effect though, right? That's a proposal that keeps being put forward and then, I think, right?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So I don't think it's fully in effect yet, but I think that's the thing
Oh
that
my
would scare me
God.
the most.
We can't
in terms
lose
of
any
the impacts
skills.
of the state is if we lose our shipper out of Portland, that would have a huge
Absolutely
impact
not,
across the board.
yeah.
The other part too, Kevin, right, if that's not a full load, then the economics start to work against us in the sense that those ships will simply not come here.
That's correct. They would,
That's a bigger impact
IMSCIP would
for
no
us.
longer come to Portland, no longer come to America, North America. I don't think. So I think
Okay.
that's the one that.
Any good news there?
In my,
Kevin?
in that role, you asked me about that part, in that particular role, I would say that's the thing that worries me the most, I think.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that impact. I mean, news. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I
Sorry about that.
No.
Kim Howard with the Old Orchard Beach Chamber of Commerce. So Overall, hotels are down about 10 to 20%. The campgrounds are impacted more. Just a lot of Canadian families choose to camp out when they come here, and especially in Old Orchard Beach. And while I say that, there are smaller properties that, you know, their bread and butter has been Canadian clients for generations now, so they're impacted more as well. But I will say, you know, anecdotally, in the past week and a half, 2 weeks now, some properties saying they're starting to see more Canadian calls, and some people that canceled earlier in the year are, you know, starting to rebook.
Yeah.
And I hate using this phrase because we used it during COVID, but there's cautious optimism in Old Orchard, so really
like
we
this.
need the
This is
weather
good.
to hold. We need the weather to really hold this summer, but
Do they ever mention the exchange rate? 'Cause, I mean,
the exchange rate to some of the properties, from what I understand, it has been almost as much of a factor as
Really?
everything else.
'cause
Yeah.
it's not that different than last year. Is it like 72%?
It's gotten a little
72?
bit better, but it sounded like earlier in the year it was
Better for them.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
when they still didn't know what was going on in the election and things like that, I think that was also another
Yeah.
factor as well too, just what was going on their side as well. So yeah, you know, we're cautiously optimistic, but we're also looking at thinking outside the box for marketing to new audiences and things
Yeah,
like that.
that's something we should want to talk about too later. But
Yeah, we at the chamber, we had a roundtable discussion just last week with local businesses about how you can, you know, partner on cross promotional things and do bundle packaging, a restaurant and a hotel. It's gonna look different this year, and we're trying to grapple with that.
I mean, I know it's difficult to talk about discounts, but
Yeah, and we did a webinar about 3-4 weeks ago as well, with a marketing guru, essentially,
Yeah.
just how to pivot to new audiences and things
Good.
like that. Yeah.
If I could just piggyback on that, we have a campground who wanted to be here today. Well,
Oh.
we actually had two, one of whom lost, you know, $20,000 in
oh my gosh.
advance fees, and another one who is a national group, Spacious Skies, and she said they lost between 40 and 100% of reservations at their sites, depending on where they were located in the country. So they are really scrambling, and that's
Do they focus on Canadian
enormous,
traffic or
a
in general?
lot of Canadian traffic. yeah.
Wow.
And those numbers kind of blew me away.
Did they say if there was a particular difference from state to state? Like, did some states
The
see-
southern states are having a little better time of it,
Okay.
I think. You know, I don't know that they pull the same numbers.
Tell them about those
though.
damn tornadoes. Come
No.
on.
Yeah,
Bad
I
place.
was just I was just curious.
Yeah, no,
like,
she said
you
those
know.
were not doing as badly, but anything that was kind of in the north and closer, where they usually, I think the bulk of their clientele at those locations in the north are Canadians.
Okay.
So they're losing, I mean,
For summer.
100% of your bookings is pretty crazy. So that's
Oh man.
a big issue. But when we talk about positive things, Bob LaChance couldn't be here today from Anger Fence. He was able to get down hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cedar before the tariffs hit, and he was delighted. And kind of true Maine spirit, his next door neighbor, Canvas Works, gave over their parking lot. So now there is, you know, $500,000
For storage.
lumber, you know,
All
strewn
right.
across Route 1 South, so they could keep things going.
He's not there today. No. That's good. It's amazing how interrelated we are. I mean, you don't realize it just day to day, but simple things like building supplies. And we've read in the newspapers that in recent months, cost of construction in Maine has gone up by 10% just because of the lumber, steel, aluminum, tariffs. We know the seafood industry is hurting. These lobsters, they're caught in the Gulf of Maine. They go up to Canada, they come back, they go up to Canada, they come back. They don't know what country they're in. Are you a Canadian lobster or a Maine lobster? You know, what to pay. Same thing with lumber supplies. It goes back and forth. So many Maine businesses have operations, sawmills and the like in Maine, but then they send them to Canada for other processing. They come back in different forms. And I mean, petroleum products, we know right now there's some sort of exemption for petroleum products for some form of those tariffs, some of the basic tariffs. But honestly, we get 90% of our heating oil from St. John, New Brunswick. And half of that heating oil actually comes from the west coast of United States, I'm told by Irving Oil, for instance. So is it American oil or is it Canadian oil? 80% of our petroleum products overall come from Canada, Maine's petroleum products. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next week or the next month. But if tariffs hit those petroleum products, electricity, Versant, saw a blackout just the other day, Versant. Electrons come from Canada. The corridor comes down from Canada. Hydropower. So we're so intertwined. These are not normal tariffs. These are not normal trade discussions. Be honest, in February when I was at the White House, after we had that little encounter, then he asked for questions, the president. And he got a couple softball questions from some people. And I had my hand up.
And you didn't call him?
He didn't call him because he had said in his remarks, his long remarks, that he was going to declare a state of emergency because of the southern border and fentanyl and immigration. So I had my hand up to ask, well, what about the northern border? What did they do to us? We like Canada. He didn't call on me. I still have that question.
But there is that interconnectedness. I was fortunate enough to see Algonquin Playhouses come from away this past
Yes,
weekend.
I'm going to go see
And
that.
it's extraordinary, like tears pouring down. But,
They
but
helped
to
us.
think about during our darkest time, them opening their hearts and their homes to all of these Americans and being there for us. And then, the juxtaposition with what's going on now here is so striking, hearing
And
those.
the elections in Canada 2 weeks ago, I think, sent a message too.
Yeah.
They're rejecting that spirit of hostility. They want to be our friends.
Right. And I know
Anyway.
you were talking about marketing, and Ed has
Yes.
some,
Yes, so I am with the Maine Beaches Association, which is the regional destination marketing organization for York County. So we market this part of the state as a four-season vacation destination, and we work a lot with Carol Anolette at the Maine Office of Tourism.
Where'd she go?
She's
Oh, there she is.
And
Yeah.
we were actually
Yes.
anecdotally dovetailing off what Kirsten said. We were in Canada when you were in Washington D.C. and the next day there was we're not coming to Maine this year, but we love your governor. And that was,
Wait a minute.
yes, no, seriously. We heard that many times.
That's
Absolutely.
not fair.
We were at the
Not
show
fair.
together, and we had our state map, and your welcome to the Maine was right across from that. So we had to keep the book open because people wanted to see both, and so it was really good. On a positive note, we are hearing. I work with the same marketing organization that Kim is working with in Old Orchard Beach, and in our most recent report on our paid advertising, we are seeing upticks from Eastern Ontario and Quebec. So we're starting to see a little bit more of that. And again, I believe it goes back to, again, as Kirsten said, it's the rhetoric of if the 51st state comes up again, then that's going to nosedive everything. And as long as we don't hear that, I think we're going to start to see some of that. Yes, the exchange rate is still in the low 70s. I think they're used to that being in that low, in that range. Maybe it's a little, it's a little bit different than what they're used to, but they're willing if the rhetoric doesn't come back around, we're willing to see they're willing to concede to come to the state. We actually, when that happened, in our region, last year we had to pivot when we had those January storms. Because people were saying, "Do you even have a beach left?" And we had to, pivot our marketing to say, "No, the beaches are back," and we did a whole, marketing. So again, we did that same thing as how do we, knowing that York County and especially Kim, who's one of our board members, is affected by this in a huge way, repositioned all of our marketing to go to an all are welcome campaign. And just using that, and that is both domestic and an international campaign to bring, to remind people that, the Maine Beaches is a great destination and all are welcome here.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Canada, but we can't forget all the other countries that we welcome here.
Correct.
And states, other
Yes,
states.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we're trying to do is we look at as bigger at other markets that maybe we haven't tapped into as much. It's just saying, you are welcome in Maine, and to please come and visit our destination.
Good, thank you. Well, we have a brand, and I think it's a good one, and we want to protect it, and market it as best we can. So I'm interested in any ideas that you might have for me as I meet with the Canadian premiers in June. Any suggestions other than to reinforce the message that we've just been talking about? Please come, don't boycott us or anything of that sort. Don't blame us or boycott us, right?
I think in a lot of ways with the, as long as we can reinforce that they are still welcome, that this is, there is one faction, we'll say, of the, that this message is coming out of, and that's not what you're getting here. I think that will go a long way. I mean, I think when we were in Toronto at that point, we had a very successful visit while we were there for our 3 days, working and trying to engage people to want to come to the state. We were planning trips for people while we were there, and I think we're going to start to see more of that as time goes on. As you said, we had there were new elections in Canada. That sort of was a reset, and maybe that was a reset on both sides of the border, and maybe we can start to rebuild from that.
Great, and I think regional marketing is probably important as well.
Absolutely.
And combo packages that the chambers are putting together, lodging and meals and beach access and all those things that we offer. But I want to also defer to Commissioner Duguay and Director Willett too, and their thoughts and observations or comments.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. I think as an overview, as the Governor pointed out, and you all have basically talked about, there is a cost, obviously, to the tariff.
Sorry, Mike.
But there is an actual physical cost, obviously, in dollars, and it's made it challenging for a lot of companies that I've actually been talking to pretty much daily. The other side of that, though, what really we're talking about is that psychological tariff. It's the uncertainty and the unknown. And the other part, when you're talking about actual goods being shipped several weeks, if not months, on the water to get here, what's happening with packaging in particular, there's a guessing as to if that hits port and customs, is it going to be 145% tariff or is it going to be the 30% tariff? And the sad part is we're paying a real high premium for all those goods for something that's uncertain and unknown. And so you're really hitting to the really what's germane of the issue here is that it's the uncertainty and the instability of the policy that's putting a lot of this cost into the mix that otherwise we wouldn't have to pay. So I'm certainly hearing that from pretty much every other industry as well in Maine. The difficulty as well, though, is back to that point of the psychological tariff. It's the unknown of what that impact will be to us. And as the Governor pointed out in his lead, that reassurance that we are, in fact, very connected to our Canadian friends and have always been. That's exceedingly important because they need to hear that reassurance. I've actually met with a few of those companies. They understand that. They understand that Maine is different in that sense. They understand that interconnection, and they see us as friends as well. They are frustrated, however, at that federal messaging, and they're confused as to why that's coming out. So.
Psychological tariff.
Yeah, and actually, I can't take credit for that, Governor. I wish I could.
You should.
But yeah.
But that confusion is a lot. Kristen and I did all our publications, which are over there, and how many times did we switch our printer this year?
Several.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have
Really?
always used a Canadian printer, but when they announced the tariffs, it would have been $10,000 extra, and we're a nonprofit.
Oh my
We
gosh.
can't do that.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
we pulled it back and went with another printer, and it turned out they didn't have the paper because they usually get theirs from Canada.
Really?
And so then our Canadian printer said, no, I think it's okay now. But then the next day was that press conference.
Oh my gosh.
So we all had to sit and wait for the press conference and then figure out if printed materials were okay. And we figured they were, so we went back to Canada with the print products, which just came in. What did you get? An hour's notice that the truck was here from Canada?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
For
gosh.
Just
2
down
weeks
here?
notice and
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was fun.
yeah, they call us.
You could understand if there was a war going on and America was, what I mean, something really dramatic like that. Look, we have a roller coaster in Old Orchard Beach. Maybe we should invite them all to come. But that's what's going on. It's a roller coaster, supply chain, roller coaster business plan.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying,
Yes.
like we were saying, like the going back and forth. Thankfully, this didn't happen to me, but another dealer I know, they had commissioned a piece from overseas from an artist last year. It got shipped over here, and technically, art is not supposed to be subject to tariffs.
Right.
Well, at some point, someone
value it, yeah.
someone decided that no, it was a sculpture piece, and they decided no, it's not art. It's going to be subject to tariffs. So they had to all of a sudden pay tariffs on the piece of art, and they're in the process of fighting
How
it.
do they value it? How do they appraise it? I mean,
Well, I mean, it comes, the artist has the price, like here's what they paid for it and whatnot, but they shipped it, and they shipped being like, yep, nope, no problem. Like they had done their due diligence. They
Yeah.
had been told, you're fine, you can send this, everything's okay. It gets to port, and it was almost effectively like a ransom demand.
oh my
Like they were told,
God.
nope, you have to pay this to free up the piece. And
Good members of Congress, and I know this message is getting to them too, and I want to make sure we keep sending that message to them every day. They have the power to take back their power, their constitutional responsibility to rein in tariffs, taxes, and take back their constitutional responsibility not to raise taxes on the backs of people and small businesses especially. So, anyway, I was interrupting you, but,
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. The thing too, and you're all talking about it, but it's a compounding effect, right? Because many of you have items that you're actually contributing to or actually making yourself, but the problem is they're independent necessarily of each other, but they're now being caught in this mix where you add eggs and then the cost of cocoa. A lot of it goes back to that supply chain, as the governor pointed out, the uncertainty of how that supplier is going to get goods into America and at what cost. Now, if you have an item, and Kevin really speaking to your company as well, if you have something that's on that floor that you're moving with 4 or 5 of those raw ingredients, and they're all being compounded against each other and the price is being increased, it's not just the increase on one side for a tariff. You go way back to the supply chain, all of those costs are being added individually. So in totality, right, this is a tsunami as far as cost to the end user and the consumer.
Wow,
Clearly.
yeah, it's all interrelated.
All of our hides that are being put into the leather are American hides, and so that's another component that
Oh,
you're
really?
saying is, yeah, everything is from Tyson International Beef. There's 600,000 head per week that are slaughtered across America. Sorry, that's TMI for anybody, but Asia is essentially recycling America's trash because those hides,
Really?
if they were put in the ground, folded, would fill this room would be one order for just one brand in a day, and those won't break down in our lifetime because the hide is the last thing left in a cow that's not used through the dairy process, right? And so that's the other confusion right now is brands are looking for how to find that margin. And footwear is weird if it has a certain amount of American components in it when it comes back, it's taxed here,
Yeah.
and then now this extra tariff, blah blah blah, whatever. But the point is that they're trying to justify that the hide is American, which is 30% of the shoe in my world, right? And can they justify that it's still American if it goes to Vietnam and goes from a hide to become leather? And I mean, the stuff they're going through is
Isn't
just
that
crazy.
interesting?
Yeah, and seeing it on the inside, I think the biggest piece being part of supply chain is the lack of education to the consumer. Consumers have no idea what we're talking about right now. Like, they're just going on with life, right? You just pay your bill, you just do life, but people don't understand, and if they're gonna be punished for, like, if you're gonna be punished for putting out there, like, my ideas for marketing would be, put something out there that shows a map of, hey, from here down, we voted blue, you know, and show the votes and put it on a map and say, please come see us. America is one thing, but New
We're
England
probably not
is.
gonna do that.
No,
but-
I know we're not. But my point is like, we don't just say things matter of fact enough. It's so like
We wanna
walking
welcome
around-
all parties to the state.
Correct.
Right.
But we walk around so much of the reality, and when it comes to cost of goods, I mean, he
Yeah.
was talking about punishing brands that wanted to put the difference of cost of tariff. Like, as consumers,
It's
we should
just the
see that.
truth. It's just the
It's
truth.
just the truth. There's no, we're not, that's not about politics, it's the truth. And so it should feel that way when you're marketing Maine as well. This is just our truth. America's done what they've done, this is a self-inflicted pain, but for Maine and southern Maine especially, like, we welcome you with open arms, business as usual, love as usual, you know, come and see us.
I like
And
it.
how do you advocate and have ambassadors that bring that message? And can you have some festival? Can we have a festival between the two
Ooh.
countries? That doesn't need to be some
Biddeford and
crazy
Lewiston
thing,
have
but
their festivals.
something that,
Or a
you know,
special week
yeah,
or
like
something,
Yeah.
you know, is there some way to get something that could, and then maybe you look at the weeks that are limited like that have a lot of open space in southern Maine especially with hotels and things, and say, let's choose that week so the hotels will fill up and make it a festival special.
We need Celine Dion, like a
You're
Celine
right.
Dion.
She might come, I don't know.
I love Celine.
You know, how can you do something like
I'd love to
that?
see that.
Because if you offer discounts like you noted, it's like in COVID, how many of the prices have gone back down? They haven't. Consumers are gonna get used to this new normal, and then you're gonna be expected to, well, what about last year? The prices were, you can't do that. You know, COVID impacted the globe, right?
Yeah.
And it was like volleyball with these other countries. At one point they were shut down and we were open,
Right.
like, where are our goods? And then we were shut down and they were open, where are our orders?
Yeah.
This is just us. So, you know, we have to be the ones that make the solution.
We learned a lot during COVID about
did.
supply chain too.
We did.
And we shouldn't forget those lessons. 'cause
That's for sure.
They endure. Carolyn Willette,
Yes,
do you have anything to add about what the Department of Tourism can do or is doing? What's the marketing plan here?
Yeah, first, I just want to say how helpful this is for us, just hearing from businesses individually, so thank you. But, you know, we work with the regions very closely, as Ed mentioned, so we learn a lot from the regions and from the chambers, because that's how that all feeds through. But for us, we have been very deliberate in starting our summer campaign much earlier than usual. So we went in about 6 weeks ahead of last year, which was really important to us, recognizing that so many dynamics were changing. So the big word uncertainty, which we continue to hear, pivot before, uncertainty now, maybe they're both the same and back and forth. But we continue the marketing efforts that we have had in place in Canada. So that has been, you know, as the governor has
So
mentioned.
you started 6 weeks early.
But we started
When
earlier.
did you start marketing into Canada then?
So we started April 1 for our
Okay.
summer campaign, and last year was about mid-May. So that's part of it. So just recognizing that, as Ed mentioned, we did all our consumer shows this winter in Canada. So we were in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, and had great opportunities to be one-on-one with many people who traveled to the US and to Maine in particular. You know, I think Ed covered it well. The sentiment was all around. We were there the day we heard about the governor's discussion with the president, and which was, people were really excited to come share their thoughts. And I think there's a little bit of everything. I mean, everything that you've all shared with us, right? Some uncertainty, a little bit of safety concerns, some exchange rate concerns, but still people love Maine. And the governor mentioned the brand is strong. So for us, it's just really important to continue to reach out to the people we know personally, that we have relationships with in Canada, and just continue to be there and be very present. The rest of the marketing campaign, very focused domestically, absolutely with some expansion markets in that mix, and those are primarily direct flight markets. So Charlotte, North Carolina, 3 markets out of Florida, and Denver, Colorado. Last summer, we saw, of our visitation, 22% of them were the first time to Maine. A lot more diverse audiences, so, you know, again, that welcoming to all. It was nice to see a mix of people, not only geographically, but demographically through the mix. So we continue to focus on those new markets, because that just, we know how high our repeat visitation is, and that's thanks to everything that you do from an experience perspective. But, you know, 99% satisfaction with their trips last year. That was like I think a double-digit increase.
Wow.
So if we can keep finding those new visitors, that just helps. But certainly recognizing how important that Canadian relationship has been long-term, and recognizing that, you know, as we've heard today, there's differences in how much a percentage of each of our businesses, each of your businesses, are dependent upon a Canadian visitor. So that varies by place and by business as well. But so that's kind of it's been our approach. Fun idea, festival ideas. Yeah. So I think just keeping those relationships solid is the best way, and then finding some new ones is also just as important.
Looking forward to getting that graphic on our website soon, so we can start letting people know when they visit, you know.
Yes, yeah. And what parts of Canada are we marketing right now?
Yes, so in Canada, we focus on the eastern provinces, so in essence, Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia are the primary 4 in which we have our marketing targeting inside those geographic areas.
Bilingual ads.
We do have, when we're in Montreal and New Brunswick as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, in Quebec itself, but New Brunswick is also that bilingual piece. So we're very conscious of that. Continuing to work more on adding French pages to Canadian French pages to the website. So.
Great.
And then we do have a small piece where we are overseas as well. So that's, you know, that is a small portion, but again, very important for length of stay.
That could be bilingual also.
You know, one of the things that the governor, you mentioned about the summit was, it made me think of Destinations New England, which is our group, you know, which is this trade group that I know that MOT is a part of, and just making that international reach even that much further.
Destination what? I'm sorry.
It's Discover New England.
Discover New England, I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
that's okay.
Discover New England, yes.
And so Governor, that's the 6 New England states.
Okay.
It was the first regional overseas marketing group to be formed, and it's the
Ah.
6 New England states, and we market overseas as a region to better leverage our resources, really.
Oh, that's great.
So yes, most of those states, the governors with whom you're working, we'd all be working
Alright.
together as tourism directors.
I'll mention that at our conference.
Thanks, Ed.
One thing I'd like to add as well is for any guests that are still considering coming to Maine from, Canada or wherever they're coming from, they can lean on local organizations such as the Chamber to help them plan their trip and help them navigate that uncertainty. Sometimes at the Chamber, we're on the phone with guests for an hour helping to plan their trip everywhere from, accommodations, where to dine, activities and things to do. So we really like to listen to what their concerns are, what their wants are,
How
what
many
their goals are,
children, older
their
people?
celebrating anniversaries or whatever it is. So we're really more than happy to help them plan their trips. So just wanted to add that in there in terms from a
Right.
marketing play, but here to support people however we can help, so.
Good. Mr. Mason, anything to add?
No, I think the Canadians realize how welcoming Maine is. I really do. And I think they realize that the citizens of Maine welcome the Canadians. There's so many citizens of Maine that have migrated down from Canada, and including a lot of my staff. So I think if the rhetoric stays low, we are gonna see an uptick, because they just need to know that they're being honored and they're being respected, and they do wanna come down and visit.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other suggestions? Anything I can bring up at the Premier's New England Summit?
Just an
Yes.
idea that kind of came up in my head. Maybe, focusing on the different amazing aspects of Maine. We have the wonderful outdoors that include the beaches, skiing, hiking trails, beautiful natural landscape. We also have an amazing food industry. You walk around Portland and walk around Kennebunk.
Yeah, right.
When people ask me all the time, her croissants are my guilty pleasure. They're a deep love in our family. But people ask me, where do you recommend going for dinner or lunch when you're in Kennebunk? And I say, well, what are you in the mood for? Because frankly, none of it's bad. It's just, what do you want? If you want Thai food, hey, Mekong Thai's over there. You want sushi, Rosella. What are you wanting? And I'm sure that's how it is for a number of other places. Show this amazing culinary scene. Look at the industries, saying the fishing industry. Look at the men and women that are making that industry great. That is a lot of what Maine was being built on. We have amazing education systems. We have colleges that are, top notch. The arts. We have museums. The Farnsworth. There is so much that's happening in our state that I don't think people just in the U.S. know about. And we could do just a series of campaigns that look at these individual aspects of what makes Maine Maine. Because some people want a foodie experience. Some people want to go to the beaches, and that's all they're gonna do. They're never gonna leave the beach except to go to sleep. But there's lots of people are interested in doing, and
Do we have a gallery museum trail in Maine, something that connects?
there might be some unofficial ones within. So Decor Maine always does a really great. There might be something. Yeah, it's always hard to, certain people do certain things at different times of year. But yeah, I think it would just be great to highlight all these different aspects, things that brought me to Maine.
And celebrating all the people behind it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there's a reason we moved here, and it was because of everything I just said. We looked at this state, we looked at this town.
Winslow Homer's cottage.
Maine has, on an arts perspective, Maine has a huge history that is I don't think really acknowledged enough nationally.
No, welcome to the home of John Marin and Marston Hartley and the Wyatt family and Winslow Homer and someone I had, the woman I had her artwork in the.
Frances Perkins is
Yes,
another
well,
one.
yeah, but the woman, oh gosh, Dolph Ipka, I was trying to think of her name, and her parents, people like that are still well known in those circles. Come to a gallery, you come out to eat too, you know, stay overnight.
Yep.
Sorry, babe.
Oh, no. Carol Ann, you had a piece at the end of the governor's conference on tourism that would, quite frankly, summarizes a little bit of that,
Oh,
as it takes a little bit of pieces of Maine, and it will leave the hair on the back of your
The
neck
brand
standing.
anthem
It's-
video, yeah,
absolutely-
the Forged by Nature.
it's
So
absolutely
the,
amazing.
Uh-huh.
the evolution of the brands that we've been working on is this notion of Forged by Nature, and I think you've actually described it
You
perfectly.
just literally
yeah.
narratively
It was
described the visual.
combination of how the landscape inspires the people, that inspires the experience, that inspires the art, the culture. So it's kind of that circular, and that's where we're continuing to shift a lot of the storytelling and the work.
It's outstanding.
So yeah,
I'm so glad that I thought of the idea that you already thought of.
No, it's coming together. It's brand.
But I also see a
expanding.
spokesperson in you right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's the brand messaging, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's better than psychological terrorists.
I agree.
Terrorists or terror? Terrorists. Well, thank you all. Let's stay in touch, and through Mike,
Yeah,
Carol
please.
Ann, we always have an open door.
Governor has signs.
Oh, what's this? Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Signs. Who has a shop window?
That's great.
Who has a shop window? Who has an inn? 358 years old.
And we will have more permanent ones here shortly.
these
We'll get in touch with the
These are
chambers.
great.
and
Perfect
see
for
what
windows.
else.
Windows of
I
all
do too.
sizes.
Yeah, I really like the heart.
And the heart.
Yeah.
We have more for the chamber to distribute,
Okay.
and we have more on the way too.
I love Montreal. Montreal's one of my favorite cities.
Good. It's
Many good memories there.
what we can do, you know? It's a little something.
Thank you for coming down and
Yeah.
Spending the time,
spending the time in here.
A day out of Augusta is a good day.
A day in the Kennebunk is always a good day. But we
Yeah.
appreciate
Definitely,
you coming
definitely.
down and hearing the stories, because we've
My
been hearing
pleasure.
them for months, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
really is great to see how much you care about the same
Well,
things.
of course I care. I mean, it's my
Yes.
state, you know?
No,
I
thank
mean,
yeah, thank you from I think all
I
of
hear
us.
similar things from Western Maine too. I mean, the ski season wasn't bad, but the, you know, what's gonna go on next winter, next fall, doesn't depend only on the snowfall, and the temperature drops. Depends a lot on how welcoming we are and what happens beyond the borders of Maine. So we'll do what we can, keep things stimulated here in Maine, and keep you all in business. And I thank you for staying the course, keeping the faith, and keeping Maine top of mind. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor, can I just ask, the I'm skip news is shocking. If somebody could turn the mic around. Can I just ask you that's, I mean, losing I'm skip is not just bad
Well,
for Maine,
that's a
it's bad for the
proposed-
possibility.
Yeah, it's a,
Okay.
it could happen, we don't know, and obviously that's something that we would wanna make sure our two US senators know about.
We just hadn't heard that yet, which is why.
News to me too, frankly, so, but, pretty scary thing.
But I drove by their terminal a lot, and
Sure.
there's not as much stuff there.
Really?
To load on the ships as there has been in the last couple of weeks, so
You don't know if those containers are empty, ready to get filled, or filled, ready to get shipped, you know.
But the parking lot is not as filled where they store them all, so
Oh,
that's,
yeah?
we were gonna look into that.
Yeah, that's a question for them, obviously I don't know the answer.
I believe that's ports all around the United States, and
Yeah.
much of it's, no, it's all
Ships
across the.
backed up in Los Angeles and
Yeah,
whatnot.
it's all across that port.
We'll find out. He's gonna call Skip next. No, if it's out there, it's out there.
I do have to run, I'm sorry.